Welcome everyone, it's Chris Petri. Thanks for coming by. Hey, we're going to have a fantastic time today. We're going to do this beautiful farm scene, and it's real simple. We're doing some glazing washes and then some detailed washes with our painting. And it's an easy step-by-step approach. Whether you're new or you've been painting a while, you really have a fun time with this. It's really a great painting to try. Simple color scheme, not too many colors. And the washes are kind of also pretty simple, not too detailed. So this is the painting. I'll remove this here. Just to mention, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button below. This way you get my videos as they come out each week. We have new videos every week, different subject matter. We do all types of watercolors, all types of techniques here. You'll learn a tremendous amount, and you can apply that to your watercolors, and you'll have a beautiful time painting watercolor as you learn and grow here at this channel. So again, also, if you hit this notification bell next to the subscribe button, that also will let you know exactly when the video comes out, so you can watch it at your convenience, and you'll know exactly when it is first coming out for viewing. Okay, so this is the finished painting. And you could take a photograph of this or hit pause and work from this, or do a screen capture. Okay, so we're going to move right along here. We're in the process of starting our pencil drawing. So we're just going to have a real simple go of this. This is not too complex here. This is more of a fun, simple composition we're going to do here. So let's start out. I think if anything, we'll make just a few hash marks on our paper. Let's make our barns and our farm about the height of the buildings, around a quarter of a way above the bottom of the painting. So just we're going to keep the buildings and the trees and things low, really low here on the paper. That's about really all to note. So we just make a mark of that, saying we're not going to go much beyond a quarter of a way up the paper. And from there we can maybe decide on where we want to go with some barn structures and maybe a small house. Maybe we'll go about here. So maybe we'll say about here is the barn. And that should be fine. And then we'll work the rest of the subject matter in as we go. But we're going to keep this real simple. So we'll make the barn about here, and we'll just kind of loosely make the bottom of the barn so we have like a foundation. And then we're going to scale it down. We're not going to make it too big, so this will kind of be in the distance a bit. we have the large barn door there, maybe a couple other doors over here, a couple windows. And that's really it. That's really our barn shape. It's pretty simple. It's just like a large rectangle, really. And then a small pyramid on top of the... So if we were drawing it, it would just be basically the barn is like just a super long rectangle, like that. And then a pyramid about halfway. And then the other half of the barn structure is a lower roof, like that. And here we don't see the roof on this side of the barn here. This is the gable end of the barn. And then just another rectangle for the door. And then a couple small doors and windows you could put anywhere you like. Not too many though. Usually barns are sparse with doors and windows. And this is going to be a darker dark. So that's kind of like the feel for the barn. A triangle, and then a long rectangle, and another thinner rectangle right here. And that's it. Simple, it's a simple breakdown of it. And then we'll keep going. So now we'll work in some tree shapes. Very loose. Couple trees over here by the side of the barn. And I'll kind of make them, the trees are kind of leaning to the right a little bit. And the same here. I make the trunk first, and then just kind of rough in a little bit the trees, the branches and the leaves. And that should be good. So that's like our middle distance. And then maybe here, we'll make another field across here. You can use a ruler to keep things really nice and level and straight across the paper. So I'll make the distant field here a little more accurate, just like that. So this is the middle distance, and then the far distance here is some of the hills back here. And we're in farmland, so it could be a ranch, a farm, you make it whatever you like. And I'll make another small house structure here. And maybe there's a road that goes here. And another driveway here for this barn over here. And a couple trees over here. Again, I'll have them kind of leaning to the right. And that's good for the drawing. I think that's plenty. We're just kind of a more simple composition here, more fun with the paints, and we'll get started on that in just a second. I'll just make some hash marks here. We're going to make that dark, a dark tonal value there where the barn door is and where the other doors and windows are. And that should be fine. We'll make a large, nice looking graded wash for the sky. Alright, so that's the pencil drawing. And we'll get started with the painting in just a few minutes. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. Okay, we're back. We took a nice break. Take breaks every 15-20 minutes or so, unless you really feel like you have really super strong concentration and you can just keep working. That's fine too. Some people really don't need to take breaks, let's say, for painting and drawing. You might just be able to kind of motor on through and continue. But I think most times, most people will feel it's kind of comfortable to take a little break, relax for a few minutes or so, and then come back. So I like taking breaks myself. You have to find what you like to do as far as when you're drawing and painting. So what I did here is we did the pencil drawing, so that's the first part, getting in some structures, a barn here and then a smaller barn over here, so we scaled it down. A larger barn here closer to us in the picture, and then in the distance here we put another house structure, and that is going to give us that real nice feel of distance in the painting. And then we did some distant mountains, and we used a ruler, of course, to go across the horizon line back here. So we got a nice straight horizon line across, and then we put our mountains along that line, and that's really all we need for this painting. That'll give us enough information that we can just start to go in and paint. Now what we'll do here is, this is a Fabriano extra white paper, and it's rough paper. We'll take our Da Vinci 1-inch square brush or flat brush, and we'll just wet the paper a little bit here and there, not everywhere, just we'll get some dampness onto the paper, and we'll do the same. We'll just work it right down here and there, right down over to the barns and the structures and the roadway here and the fields. So just a little bit of water here and there, scrub on some water, dampen up the paper a little bit. It's going to give us a nice effect. And this will just be the first glazing, so we're not looking to go into much detail at all. We're just going to do some purple. And up here we'll do some cerulean blue, so we'll kind of have some cerulean blue here, some purple here, and we'll use some raw sienna over here. And that should be good. Raw sienna, cerulean blue, and purple, which is ultramarine violet, Winsor & Newton. That's my favorite purple. And we'll get a light wash going here. Just, these are nice, the flat brushes, just to put on some wispy sky colors, cerulean blue, and we'll just kind of mix those on. I dip my brush in the water. Now we'll go with a little raw sienna mixed in with that, and we'll put in a tiny bit up here too, just to, but you can see I'm barely doing much here, just getting some color on, very light washes, not a lot of paint. And then we'll just keep working that down, and then toward the horizon line, more of the sienna. So I added a little bit more water. You can do this with round brushes too, or any brush you have. You can do this. This is just a little easier with the flat brush. It kind of cover more area quickly, but you could do this with a round brush too. And let's see, we'll get a little more blue, cerulean blue, just super light wash. And some more raw sienna in the foreground across the barn structures and farmhouses. And that's it. We don't want to go back now. Once you kind of get this first light wash on there, glazing technique, again, we're using the glazing technique. Once you get that first wash, you just start up top. If you use Fabriano paper or Arches paper or some of the better papers out there, you'll have a little more of a easy time getting your washes on and blending things as you go. If you're using like a student grade paper, you might just have to do a real fast wash down one time and not really go back in and fuss too much. The better papers give you more time to go back in and add some touches of color as you're going and take your time a little more. It gives you a little more time to get your washes on and blend things a little more with the better papers. And so that's good though. Let's leave that. Let's let it dry 100%. And then once that is completely dry, we'll come back. We'll start our second glazing, which will be, we'll work in the distant mountains and the trees and barn structures. A little bit of the road and maybe we'll get that done on the second glazing, and then maybe the final glazing we'll do some bushes and plants and things in the front, maybe some flowers and things in the very, very foreground to give it that real nice dimensional look of foreground, middle ground, middle distance, and then our distant mountains and the sky, the big sky. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to let this dry again for about maybe 20 minutes, and we'll come right back. Okay, so we're getting started back here. We have our first glazing on, some beautiful sky washes, and we just took the sky washes and brought them right down into the foreground. So we took a break. We're going to start doing our barn structures and our country houses here, some trees, some distant mountains, and we'll get started. I'm going to use a number 5 Da Vinci travel brush for this here. And we'll get started. Let's use some burnt umber, burnt sienna. My colors got mixed up a touch in here, so usually what I do is if my colors get a little mixed, I just take a tissue and dip down into the color and just lift up some of the other colors that might have leaked into that well. That looks good. And this is burnt sienna, so we got burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of cerulean blue in that, a little bit of purple, kind of mix up the same colors we were using before, raw sienna, and we use a little green, olive green over here. That should be good. French ultramarine blue, just to get a little darker tonal value. And get some wash on there, maybe go in with a little purple over here, some green, just to get a little different feel for that. And you can see I try to change the colors on the barn here. warm and cool everywhere. A little bit of cerulean blue, purple. Looks good. We'll paint the roof a little bit lighter tonal value, and we'll wait for that barn structure here to dry a little bit. And let's go over here. And we'll do this over here. Same thing. Here we're not going to be too worried about changing the colors. It's very small. This section here, this maybe it's a little cooler. And this brush has a good point, a really good point, so I can get those details pretty good, like that. And I'll infuse a couple little bits of color here and there. And I try to blend that bottom a little bit with the ground. And maybe maybe we'll do the mountains, the distant mountains, purple, blue, purple. And that's all just nice and easy, left to right, right across the page, purple. Maybe a touch of some raw sienna here and there toward the bottom. And we can even do some further details if we want to the very, very bottom base of the mountains here if we want to, but we don't want to go too much detail with this. And so the mountains are a little higher over here, and they're thinner over here on the right. And a little more sienna, raw sienna, just here and there. That looks pretty good. So we've got a lot of really good detail now. The two structures, the two barns. This could be a country house, and then the barn over here. And then we have our distant mountains. And now let's do a little bit of our trees. Now with the trees, a really good thing to do is practice a few on a separate piece of paper. That's the same paper as you're using. And the reason I say that is trees can be a little difficult to render nicely. So I'm using some French ultramarine blue, olive green, burnt sienna. And we'll just see how this looks if we take our 5 brush, round brush, and just kind of scrub a few ideas there like that. So that looks pretty good. So now if we can just remember to scrub lightly like this on our paper with our brush to the side, using the side of the brush, like that. And then we can make the and that's all. Very quick, effective, easy. Less is more, if you know, to think of it that way. The more quickly and effectively you can get these trees painted like this, it's going to look better than spending 20 minutes on one of them. It'll look very overworked and cause a problem, because we did very free flowing washes with our sky, and we went pretty quickly with our barn structures and our house here. So we want to keep that same theme going through our painting of just kind of getting things rendered somewhat rapidly and quickly. We wouldn't want to now spend a half an hour trying to paint a tree in here. That would look, you know, it wouldn't look like it fits in with the painting. It'll show up as kind of looking disjointed and not really part of the painting, flowing with the painting as we're going. So that's why I mentioned this. We practice a few brush strokes like that with the side of the brush, good enough. And then we can use our needlepoint brush too as well. And we can do some more finer branches and things. Like that. All right, so we practiced our leaves of our trees. Let's do the same thing here. Olive green, a little bit of sap green, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Good enough. Over here, we would get our paint on, maybe make this a little more cooler color. We would just take this color, move it over to here with a little bit of cerulean blue to make it a cooler green. Dry off the brush a little. Since we have smaller tree shapes here, we don't want to have too much paint on the brush. And then we do the same thing over here. Perfect, look at that. And then over here we could do one more maybe. Okay, little mysteries. Okay, there we go. You'll see once we put our trunks in and branches, these are going to look perfect. Okay. Maybe we'll do some purple and blue here for the roof. Looks good. Kind of a grayish looking roof. Perfect. And once this dries, we will add some shadowing underneath the eaves of the roof. And that is looking really good. I think this is really, you'll see once we do the trunks, and we can do that now. Maybe we'll take a break. We did a lot already. Let's take one more break, and then I think we can do our last bit of detail, and we should be fine with this painting. Okay, so we'll come right back and restart with our branches and trunks of our trees. A couple fence posts here and there give us a little more interesting visuals going into the painting, and we should be fine. Okay, so we just got finished taking a quick break. Let's get back started here, and We're going to take our needlepoint brush and we'll work on some trunks of the trees and some branches. We'll go right back in with our darks, burnt umber, greens, the olive green, burnt sienna, a little bit of the blue. And I just make a little area where the roots are. And if you see a spot that gets too much paint, you can lift up, make it a little bit lighter. That'll make it look, if you go with too many branches or something. And you can also add a little bit of water to that, thin it down. I'll go with a number 6 here. A number 6 needlepoint, a little bit thinner. That looks good. We'll get a few branches over here. These are much less obvious, like you really wouldn't be focusing on these too much. So just a couple small with the number 6 needlepoint here, just to get some indications of tree trunks and some shadows under there. I'll use purple for the shadows, a little bit of burnt umber and purple. And the shadows are a little less over here. The shadows will be a little more noticeable. French ultramarine blue, purple, burnt sienna, and those shadows are going to be just a little more shadowing for the closer structure here. Nothing too much, just barely visible, the shadows. We don't want to go too much. So the sun is probably more up overhead, up high in the sky, so you're not going to see long shadows. You're just going to see indications of shadows, very lightly rendered. And then let's get some darks here for the barn door. And I'll just use the needlepoint brush. It's really fun to work with this brush because you can really, we could take our time with this and not have to worry about putting too much paint on, since we're using a smaller format here. This is like an 8 by 10, 8 by 12. Okay, that's good. And maybe a door or two, not too many, a couple windows. Couple indications of some wood boards, but not too many, just a couple here and there. Maybe a horizontal board here. And same over here, kind of a bit of a shadow on the under the roof eaves. Same over here. And some darker darks here just to get a shadow under there. Okay, that looks good. A little more distant. Cerulean blue, purple, maybe a little bit of the green. A little bit of a grayish color, just a little bit of a darker. A sporadic dark here and there along that distant mountain range. That will give it a interesting look. And that's about perfect for the details, not too many. I'll leave the color for, the color scheme very simple. You could go into, if you're really daring, some cadmium red. And you put a couple little bits of maybe some red and some orange. And kind of add some water to it and gives it a little more interesting color variation, and that's good. All right, so that's the details of the barns and the structures here, the country house and the barn. Now we'll do some foreground. And then for that, we're going to step up our brush a little bit, make it a little larger. We're going to use the number 6 round brush, Raphael. And some more similar colors. Raw sienna, raw umber, burnt sienna, olive green, a little bit of blue. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll hold our brush this way and we'll sort of scrub some. This is kind of a desert kind of feel, but we could still, in this front area, we could scrub on some interesting colors, just very, very lightly. There's a road here. So I just rinse my brush off and then that gives us kind of a nice diagonal across. And then some grayish color the other way as it goes in the distance. And then maybe some chromium of oxide out here. And maybe some more of that chromium oxide over here. Just to make some lines. Some grass, some feeling of grass and fields. And sometimes, you can change your game plan. I had a road in here that I had here. I think I'm just going to leave it fields. Okay, that looks good. So I'm just trying to get those directional lines of the field. And we'll let this dry a little bit along this area here. And we could add in some brush and some twigs and things along here on these, this front section here. Maybe here might look good. Okay, let's take one more quick break. I'm going to find my hockey brush. It's in the studio somewhere not close by, so I'm going to get that hockey brush and be right back, and we'll do some final brush indications here in the foreground, and we have a completed painting looking wonderful, simple to do, big beautiful washes, big beautiful sky, and then some really nice details here along the middle distance in the foreground. Okay, so we're back from a break. I had to find my hockey brush. This is a really great brush for doing like fine details with grasses and shrubs and weeds and things like that. So we'll use this. And I'll dampen it up a little more. And we'll just go back into our typical colors. We're going to use the olive green, burnt umber, some cerulean blue, and you just work it around until you find that nice mix you have that you like. Maybe a little more green. Okay, not too much water. You can see very little water. I'm just kind of dampening the paint and the brush. You can see how dry that is. We don't want a lot of water flooding on the paper now. We're just doing some fine brush indications here, so you can see just like that. Look how good that looks. And we'll do the same over here. Then you can get it more I'll try to straighten the brush out a little more so it's more straight here, and then I'll try to get some of those lines like this here. Variety is the key here, some some weeds and grasses, a couple lines for some interesting perfect. Okay, so not too much of this now, and using the Hake brush here with the colors we just used, you keep that really close to the bottom of the painting as possible. You don't want to go far into the fields here with these brush strokes here with the Hake brush. Now, what we'll do is I'll rinse that off, and we'll use we'll go back to our needlepoint brush again. So we'll have some burnt umber, burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, a nice dark for like a nice fence post, and we're going to have more details here. These details are really going to look good. So here, I think about, okay, let's do this here, one there. Now you can see I went pretty high up with this fence post. That's really good. That gives us the feeling that we're standing a far deal away from this barn here. And then we're going to do a few more fence posts over here. So now these will be a little bit like that. And then you can see as they go into the distance, they get smaller and thinner. So I'll use my thinner, number 6. And then maybe just a few lines for some wires. Maybe there's some wires here, and that's all. A little bit of shadowing, purple mixed with the fence post color gives us a good shadow color. And the shadows were very minimal, so just a little. And the thing with shadows, you just remember with your shadows, wherever you put your first shadow, let's say there and here, then you just keep all the other ones the same as far as the direction. So just a little bit to the right of the bottom of the posts, just like that. And we just remember that the sun is high in the sky, so it's middle of the day, so the shadows aren't going to be going far. They're going to be smaller at the base of these posts. Okay, and then let's see here. We'll do a little more, maybe a few more details here we could do. I'll do a couple chimneys here. Just to make this look a little more interesting. A little more details is going to look good. Maybe we'll have some farmers maybe working here with some people. So the figures can be real simple. You just add a little cadmium red for the for the face, for the faces of the figures. So we might have a couple more figures over here, and then we use just some grayish. And some colors. And you can put, you know, maybe a few more details, maybe a tractor or something if you want to get more in depth with some of the details. You could add like a tractor maybe or something like that, but I think this is good for now. I think we have a really good, happy painting here. Gorgeous, like, you know, farm scene, farm fields. It's hot, it's sunny, big sky, cool, interesting barns and houses and things, and some figures in the painting. So we'll take a look. We'll take the tape off here and and we'll zoom in. Okay, so that's the finished painting. I hope you try this. Have a good time with it. Remember, it's just a matter of taking your time going through the steps. First, glazings, the sky wash, bringing that right down into the foreground, and then we work on the barns and the house, the farmhouse. And then from there, some trees and some final details with some, scrubbing of some brush and some of our fence posts here. And that looks really gorgeous, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.